Welcome to the Real Life Weight Loss Podcast, where we cut through the confusion and get down to the truth about what really works for real people when it comes to losing weight, having incredible health, and a body that you love. We believe that losing weight is really about gaining life, doing things you never thought you could, having renewed confidence, and enjoying your body more than ever. I'm your host, Corey Little. Now let's get to it. Hello, friends. Welcome back. This is episode number 313. And today we're going to talk about one of the biggest things that I see that often messes up people when it comes to weight loss. And oftentimes it can really just mess up a lot of things in our life. But before we get to that, I just want to give a special shout out. I did this not long ago. I'm doing it again. A special shout out to my British friends across the pond. Hello, hello. The podcast, I was notified, was recently in the top 20 in your beautiful country, number 16, I think. And if I'm not mistaken, that's actually higher than I've ever been here in the United States. So hello to all of you across the pond. Thank you for spreading the word and sharing the message about this podcast and getting it into the top 20. At least it was for a period of time. So that's the first big thank you. The second thing I wanted to say is a big thank you to everyone who has taken the time to post a review. Recently, I've had some wonderful reviews. One came in from Brazil, from Ribanita. Forgive me if I'm saying that wrong. This is the username. Another one from Saudi Arabia. The username was Unique Ebti. And also from the USA, CT Heidi. And so thank you all. Please know that I read all of your reviews, each and every one. They mean the world to me. And it's really a wonderful way. If you like this podcast, it's really a wonderful way to support the podcast. So again, thank you to all of you for posting your reviews. Thank you to my British friends and to everyone all over the world who listens to this podcast. Now, let's jump into today's episode. So, a few years ago, I live in Georgia. Let's preface it with that. I live in Georgia in the southeastern part of the United States. And any of you that live in the United States, or maybe you're just familiar with sports overall, college football is a huge deal. College football is like religion down here. And I actually live in the town where the University of Georgia is, who recently won a couple of national championships in college football. So around here, college football is a really big deal. And not long ago, just a few years back, I heard an interview with the incredibly successful, famous college football coach, Nick Saban. I don't think they were interviewing him. Maybe it was just a couple of journalists doing a discussion about Nick Saban. And he had just won yet another college football championship. I don't know, his 20th or 25th. I'm exaggerating, but he had just won another college football national championship. And they were saying, like, what is it with Nick Saban? Like, why does he have so much success? And one of the guys told a story of how something wasn't exactly right at practice. And so he kept the team out there and the assistant coaches out there for hours and hours longer until it was just absolutely perfect. And they were like, he's a perfectionist. Nick Saban's a perfectionist. And everyone on his coaching staff must fall in and be a perfectionist, and his team strives for perfection. And that's why he's so successful. And I remember hearing that and thinking, man, that just seems so stressful. But I thought, wow, I guess that's what it takes to win in college football. That's what it takes to achieve that level of success. And it's not uncommon the way they were boasting about Nick Saban being a perfectionist, and that's what led to his success. Sometimes we do the same, right? People will sometimes boast about being a perfectionist like it's a badge of honor. And here's the thing, let me be very clear. If that's working for you and you love your life and it's not holding you back or causing massive undue stress in your life, then great. I'm so happy that you're here and you're listening, but I encourage you to skip this episode and maybe go find another one of the episodes of the Real Life Weight Loss Podcast to listen to. Now, for the rest of us who might have perfectionist tendencies or maybe a full-blown card-carrying perfectionist, for all of us who are in that category and you think, hey, maybe this is causing some issues for me. Maybe you just want to know more about it, about perfectionism. Well, then this episode is for you. All of my fellow perfectionists or people with perfectionist tendencies out there, turn the volume up. Let's do it. Here's the truth that you may not hear much in just out there in pop culture. Perfectionism, rather than being a badge of honor, perfectionism is really protectionism. It's a coping strategy. It's an attempt to protect yourself. It's a primary way that we try to deal with our anxiety, our fear of failure, and fear of judgment. Perfectionism is basically built on fear. It's a product of our fears, and it's fueled by anxiety. And now, for some of you, you don't like that word. I don't like that word, right? It's like, I don't know, Corey. I don't know if I have anxiety, man. Okay, how about this? It's fueled by our insistence to do it right or, quote unquote, get things right. But here's the thing. Why? Because that is an illusion of a promise. So let me be clear. Our perfectionism, our tendency to want to do things perfectly, it's an illusion of a promise. It's basically a fake promise that things will turn out like we want them to if we just are perfect, if we just do things a certain way. And if things don't turn out that way, well, then it's not okay. And since it's not okay, I have to be perfect. I have to do things a certain way. Essentially, our brain creates this idea or belief that we won't have to face some of our worst fears, the pain of failure, the pain of criticism and judgment. We will not have to face those fears if we always win and we never fail and we're always perfect. So, how can we ever be criticized or judged if we always win and we never do anything wrong, right? I mean, it makes sense. And we will never feel the pain of failure if we're always successful. And all it takes to ensure this is, again, being perfect. Now, this logic seems to make sense on the surface, as so many of the things that hold us back in life do. It makes sense on the surface. But it is so deeply flawed. It's just a lie that our brain buys into, our brain starts to believe in order to, once again, protect us. And once we start to believe it, we start to practice it. And once we start to practice it, our brain just further ingrains that belief, and then it kicks on the cognitive bias. And it begins ignoring all the times that perfectionism didn't work, or it just really caused us more stress. We ignore all of those times, and our brain just looks for all the instances and all of the ways that we were right, and it was helpful. And see, this whole perfectionist thing is good, and I need to keep doing it. When in reality, if we boil it all down to its most basic foundation, perfectionism is really just a way of trying to control the outcome. And that would be great, and our belief would be well-founded if we could truly control outcomes. But we can't. That's just not how most things in life work. It's an illusion, especially in weight loss and health, and I'll get to more of that in just a minute. It's an illusion of a promise that can't really be kept, that things will turn out like we want if we do things perfectly and never mess up. And if things don't turn out that way, it's not okay. And I'm not okay, and my life is not okay, and maybe worst of all, it's all my fault. But if, for just a moment, we get past this illusion, this promise that can't be kept, we'll start to see that all we can truly control are our day-to-day actions. Most of the time, the outcome will be what it's going to be. It's not up to us, and as much as we want to, we can't control outcomes in our life. A lot of them we can't control. And this can be equally scary and exciting all at the same time. Scary because we finally realize, like, wait, holy crap, no matter what I do, I can't control how this specific thing turns out. I can try to be as perfect as possible. I can try to do it, quote unquote, right, which is just your brain's code word for perfect. But ultimately, it's out of my hands. That can feel really scary. It feels scary to me talking about it right now. But on the other hand, it can be exciting and empowering too, because finally you realize exactly what you can control, which is your day-to-day actions. But don't miss this, gang, this only becomes empowering when you can also let go of the outcome. That's vital. If you're obsessively controlling your daily actions, all with the thought that it will guarantee the outcome you want, then you're still stuck in the perfectionism trap. Now, on the other hand, if you're doing what you can right here, right now, today, in order to just stack the deck in your favor for the outcome you want, while also acknowledging, you know what, it will be what it will be, and ultimately it's out of my hands. Aha! Okay, there we go. That is truly empowering and freeing. Why? Because whether you realize it or not, most of the time perfectionism, it actually works against you. It's like this gigantic dose of irony because it often paralyzes us. It it often brings the very things we don't want. It paralyzes us because we're scared to death to make a mistake. And so, yeah, we don't suffer the consequences of some outcome we don't want, but in reality, it's only because we really don't get any outcome at all, because we never took enough action to progress or learn or grow or even achieve an outcome. This is what I see over and over again with weight loss. People have no tolerance for messing up when it comes to their diet or when it comes to their weekly meal plan or exercise plan. They have no tolerance for messing up. And this is why starting over on Monday or starting fresh on Monday, this is why it's such a big thing, because Monday starts a new week and it represents a blank slate where, oh yes, I have another opportunity to hopefully, finally, maybe be perfect. How many times, my friends, how many times has this worked for you when it comes to true long-term weight loss success? Think about, I don't mean, did you really nail it one week and, okay, you strung together 3 or 4 weeks and you lost a good bit of weight over 3 or 4 weeks. No. How many times has this worked for you when it comes to true long-term, lose it, don't gain it back weight loss success? If I had to guess, maybe you're chuckling. Maybe you're like, yeah, no, it doesn't. It hasn't worked. Think about it this way. How many times have you heard of it working for someone else? How many times did you hear someone say, you know what, man, yeah, I lost a bunch of weight and I've kept it off for years and years and years. And honestly, the secret to my success was I just kept starting over fresh on Monday until it finally clicked. It finally clicked and I was perfect. And I didn't need to start over fresh again. I didn't need a blank slate because, you know what? My slate was perfect. I didn't need to start over. No one ever says that, right? They don't say it because it doesn't work. If someone says, I kept starting over fresh until it finally clicked, let me tell you what finally clicked. It clicked that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect to make progress with your weight loss. Matter of fact, you can't be perfect. That's the irony of this whole thing. Perfectionism makes this promise that can't be kept, and we just keep shooting for a standard that's impossible. And so when it comes to weight loss, we either continually fall victim to this start over fresh, start with a blank slate on Monday, and then, you can start and stop and start and stop. Or maybe sometimes people just struggle to get started at all. I'll see that sometimes in my coaching group. People come into the coaching group and we're there for them and we're answering their questions and we're coaching them, and there's a step-by-step process that we go through, and they're like, I'm really, and I love these people. I'm not making fun or calling these people out. I love these people. They're amazing and I'm so happy to coach them. But they're like, I'm just really struggling to get started. And we're like, that's okay. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out what's going on. And often, 90% of the time or more, the reason they're struggling to get started is because they are scared to death to mess up. They're scared to death they're going to come out of the gate and instantly do something wrong. So it can really, perfectionism can really impact our weight loss goals in that way. Another way, and I mentioned this earlier, is some people will start and then they sputter and quit. They start, they mess up, they cannot tolerate messing up. And so they quit. Maybe they start over fresh on Monday, but sometimes they just quit. And then here's the part that really breaks my heart. And this is not just for my program. This is period. Any of you, anywhere out there in the world, whatever weight loss method you're trying to use. If they start and then they sputter, they mess up and they quit, then instead of looking inward and going, wait a minute, what's going on here? They look elsewhere. And we fall into this mistaken idea and this mistaken belief that we need something to fix. I need something to fix me. That thing didn't work. Let me find something else that will work. And that's just wrong. That's just not wrong as in evil or bad. That's just incorrect. We need to fix this part of ourselves so that we can actually execute and see things clearly. And here's the thing. There's some diets, I've said this a million times, a lot of diets are just totally unrealistic, and what they're asking you to do is ridiculous and unrealistic. And so I'm not saying, hey, the problem's always you and you always got to fix yourself. But sometimes we know, right? Like if we are consistently falling into these patterns where we struggle to start, or we start, sputter, and quit, start, mess up, and quit, start, mess up, and start fresh on Monday, and we're never getting anywhere, if we're falling into these patterns over and over and over again, then maybe we need to stop looking for something to fix ourselves, and we need to go, wait a minute, there's a pattern here within me. What is it? I need to see it, and I need to dig into it. Now, You may be really connecting with what I'm sharing in the sense of, perfectionism and how it impacts our life and how it impacts our weight loss efforts, or you may not be sure if you're buying into all of this yet. You may be like, okay, maybe I kind of see that somewhat, but maybe I'm kind of a perfectionist in this area of life, but not in that area of life, or maybe I fully am, and I just don't know if Corey knows what he's talking about. So hang with me. Let's dig a little deeper. And here's the thing. I truly believe that for some people, and I'm not a psychologist, but this is just what I've observed over years of coaching people. I believe that perfectionism for some people can rule and dominate almost every area of their life. And for other people, it really manifests just in certain areas. It can be totally absent in some areas of life, and while other areas of life, it is on overdrive. And this is why in my coaching group, we distinguish between what I call punishers and pretenders, these two different personality types where it's not that one's better or worse. It's just two distinct different personality types. And we try to coach people based off of what their predominant weight loss personality is. Because in some area, they may be a punisher. In other areas, that they may be a pretender. And perfectionism falls in line with these. And this helps us determine where perfectionism might manifest. So let's dig a little deeper into perfectionism right now. Here's the thing. It may feel good, regardless of what area of your life you experience it. It may feel good or safe or helpful in the moment. But let's peel back the layers. Let's look behind the curtain to see what is really what you're getting in this package deal of perfectionism. Like, what all does it lead to? Well, number one, perfectionism leads to burnout. Mentally spinning your wheels all the time with tons of pressure on yourself, constantly scared to death to make a mistake. My friends, good grief, that crap is just exhausting. Can I get an amen from someone who's mentally spinning all the time and you got tons of pressure on yourself and you're scared to do something wrong, scared it won't be right, scared to make a mistake, scared to make the wrong decision? That junk's exhausting, and it just leads you to feel tired and burn out all the time. And if that's you, I'm so sorry. I've been there in some areas of my life, and it is no fun. That's the first thing perfectionism can lead to. The second thing is procrastination. As I explained earlier, we're often hesitant to get started or to make a decision or take action because what if it's the wrong decision? Or what if we take action but we don't do it right? So our brain is like, no problem, I've got you covered. We'll just keep thinking about it and not take any action at all and not make any decision at all. No actions, no decisions, you're safe, it's all good, I got you taken care of. So my friend, if you would say, Corey, I have a procrastination problem. Maybe you don't have a procrastination problem. Maybe procrastination is just a symptom, and the root problem is perfectionism. And here's the thing. Sadly, not making a decision, we think, okay, I'm not making a decision yet. I'm thinking about this. Not making a decision is actually making a decision. It's saying no. It's saying no to that thing that you want to or need to do. And no to yourself and the future that you want to have. But here's the thing, in that moment, we feel safe and protected. And if we're deep in perfectionism, that is a higher priority for us than just about anything else. And again, like I said earlier, if this is you, I'm sorry. That's no fun. But that's the second big thing that perfectionism can lead to and kind of brings in as a package deal is procrastination. The third thing is black and white, all or nothing thinking. And this is really kind of a hallmark of perfectionism. And ironically, it often leads to the very thing we don't want. It leads to us judging ourselves more often and more harshly, even though, again, that's one of the very things we're trying to escape by using or embracing perfectionism. Sometimes there can almost be this subconscious thought of like, oh, okay, I'm already judging myself, so you know what? Nobody else is going to judge me. No need for any of you to judge me. We've actually had people say that in the group. Like, I screwed this week up, but I promise you it doesn't matter what you, and this is before they get to know us well, because we don't judge people or come down on people. We just try to help people, but they'll say, you know what? Doesn't matter what anyone says. I promise it can't be any worse than what I've already said to myself. No matter what you say to me, I've already said worse things to myself. I've already judged myself and criticized myself more harshly than anyone else can judge me. Sadly, that is, ironically, a protection mechanism oftentimes. Here's the thing, guys. In reality, you, we, me, us, we are just building our own prison, not to protect others, but to protect ourselves. Imagine this, gang. Think about this. What if instead of putting the dangerous criminals in prison and letting everyone else be free, what if instead of that, we let the criminals run free and we put the other people, the honest, kind, law-abiding citizens in prison in order to protect them from the criminals? That would be crazy, right? Well, this is essentially what perfectionism does. You're putting yourself in prison to protect you from the outside world. And this is partially why if someone is deep in perfectionism, their world can often become really, really small, smaller and smaller over time because less and less feels safe. And remember, all of this is a result of fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of criticism, and that fear has this toxic relationship with anxiety. Fear feeds the anxiety, and anxiety fuels the fear, and they play off of one another, and our brain is just screaming, gosh, please protect us. Protect us. Give me safety, 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 please. So, what do we do? Like this sounds no fun, right? And like, is there a way to overcome all of this and escape this big stressful mess? The big stressful mess of perfectionism that makes a promise that it can't keep? Like, can we overcome this? I believe so. I don't believe it happens in one day or maybe even 1 week, but I believe we can begin to take steps out of perfectionism and away from this stress and exhaustion. Now, here are 5 tips. This is not necessarily a step-by-step strategy. I love step-by-step things. That's the way my program's designed, but these are just 5 tips. 5 things that, without doubt, will help you take steps to overcome perfectionism. Okay, let's do it. To do this, we must, number 1, be okay with not controlling the outcome. Now, some of you may be like, Corey, that's easy for you to say and really, really hard for me to do. But it's so necessary, my friends. We must detach from the outcome. And if we're going to do that, it will probably really help us to ask, why is this outcome so important to me anyway? Gang, if you're serious about this, like if you're just listening to the podcast and you're like, oh yeah, that's nice. Oh, that was really interesting. And you're just going to zip throughout your day, that's fine. And I'm so happy you're listening and it's amazing. But if this episode really, really connected with you and you truly want to take some steps away from this, then write this question down. I'm about to give you 2 or 3 questions. Write these down and take about 5 or 10 minutes to answer them. If you can't do it right now, just put them in the notes section of your phone and circle back around to them later today when you do have time. Maybe at lunch, maybe at dinner, maybe early the next morning right after you have your coffee. Answer these questions, okay? So if we're going to eventually be okay with not controlling the outcome, if we're going to detach from the outcome, it will be very helpful to ask, first, why is this outcome so important to me anyway? Like, what's up with this? And what is my brain telling me will happen if it doesn't work out like I think it needs to or it has to? So what is your brain saying to you? Like, is the world going to crash down around you? Is someone going to die? Are you going to suffer some unbelievable harm or pain? Dig into those things. Rewind. Write those 2 questions down and answer them. I promise it'll be so helpful. And then here's the thing. As you do this and you step away from controlling the outcome, give your need for control, like don't just tell yourself, oh, I can't control anything and life's crazy. No. Give that need for control an outlet by focusing on your action. Focus on now and continually, daily, maybe even moment by moment, remind yourself that the outcome will be what it's going to be. Think of an election. Like, look, we have an election coming up in the United States. In case anybody's missed that, a big presidential election. I can vote if I'm really into the election and into what's going on with it. I can put a sign in my yard or maybe campaign for a certain candidate. But you know what I can't do? I can't control who wins. I cannot control the outcome. The majority of things in our lives are exactly the same. You can't control whether or not your boss likes your presentation. You can't control whether or not you get a raise. You can't control how your kid does in school or in a certain class. You can't control whether or not you get cancer or if someone likes you or doesn't like you. We cannot control these things. We can stack the deck in our favor by using the best practices to help those things happen, but ultimately the outcome is out of our hands. And it's the same, as much as you don't want to hear this and as much as other people will promise you it's different, to some degree it's the same when it comes to losing weight. We can use the best practices to stack the deck in our favor for being successful, for not, snacking all day long, and for taking action and with our exercise and doing all these wonderful things. We can stack the deck in our favor, and that will ultimately stack the deck in our favor when it comes to the outcome we want, to losing weight. But you can't control how much weight you lose in a week or in a month. You can't control that. You can't control whether or not you fit back into your pants. What you can control is your day-to-day action. And it makes it so much easier to take the day-to-day action with peace of mind if you detach from the outcome. Okay, next up. The second tip is to see and acknowledge the underlying fear. Now, we started to dig into that with the 2 questions I gave you in the previous section, but perfectionism is basically saying avoid. So since perfectionism says avoid this, avoid that, don't make this decision, don't do this, just avoid, you do the opposite. Typically, the more we avoid something, the more fear we have around it and the more control it has over us. So if perfectionism is telling us, don't take these actions because they may not be right, well, then you take the actions. Whatever it's telling you to not do, you do it. Now, you don't just haphazardly do something. Sure, you can, think through things and make an educated decision, take your best action possible. But you don't avoid, you go into it. Also, perfectionism says, avoid this underlying fear. Well, dig into that fear. What is it? Am I scared to death of failure? Why? Why am I scared of failure? What does failure mean? Am I going to die? Is someone I love going to die? I'm scared to death of criticism or of judgment. Okay, what if my boss doesn't like this presentation? What if I'm criticized over this or over that? What does that mean? Dig into it. Whatever it is that perfectionism is telling you to avoid, do the opposite and take steps into it. That's the second tip. The third tip, good enough is your new target. Anytime you're doing something, don't ask yourself, is this right? Did I get it right? Right is just a code word for perfect. So just say, is this good enough? Is this good enough for right now? Yep, it's good enough. Boom, I'm good. Let's go. Let's move forward. Good enough is your new target. Good enough. Write it down. Is this good enough? Yes. Great. Move forward. Okay, that's tip 3. Next up, tip number 4, mistakes and mess-ups are necessary ingredients for success. I know this is a weight loss podcast, but we're going to talk about baking a cake. If you were baking a cake and I gave you flour and butter or whatever goes into a cake, I don't know. I don't bake cakes. But if I gave you some of the ingredients, but I gave you no sugar, that would be a terrible cake. Sugar is one of the necessary ingredients to make a delicious, amazing cake. Mistakes and mess-ups are like sugar. They are necessary ingredients for success in any area of life. How are you supposed to learn or get better or progress if you never mess up, if you never can learn from anything? So the part that the story earlier that I told about Nick Saban working with his players and his coaches, the part that's left out is they all made mistakes. They messed up. They weren't perfect. And guess what? That's how they learned. That's how they got better. That's the part that was left out. So that's tip number 4. Lastly, tip number 5, you're just a kid learning to ride a bike. With pretty much anything and everything you want in life, you're just a kid learning to ride a bike. Now, you may be like, okay, that's kind of sweet, Corey. I guess it makes sense. What are you talking about? Here's what I'm talking about. You were definitely one of 3 things. You were either a kid who learned to ride a bike yourself, or you have children who you're teaching to ride a bike. One of those things has very likely happened in your life. So here's the thing. Imagine as you're teaching a sweet, wonderful, loving child to ride a bike, and the child doesn't get it at first, or they fall over and they skin their knee. Now let's imagine the child getting really down on themselves, really discouraged, really, frustrated. Oh, I can't do this. I'll never be able to do it. And then what if you were just like, yeah, you know what? You suck at this. You should stop. Don't ever do it again. Like, no one does that, right? You are probably very kind and compassionate with the child. Hopefully, whoever taught you to ride a bike was very kind and compassionate with you. And here's the thing. You want the child to be kind and compassionate with themselves because once you learn to ride a bike, you got it. It's good. And you know they'll learn it. You know they'll get it. It just takes a little bit of time. And you also fully understand they're going to mess up. They're going to mess up. They're going to fall. They're not going to get it the very first time. Some children maybe learn a little quicker than other children, but they're going to get it. And here's what I know. People, anyone, can learn to lose weight. They can learn to carve out the life and the body that they want to have. It just takes some time. And they're going to mess up, and that's okay. I expect that. And so here's the thing when it comes to perfectionism in your life, we're all just kids learning to ride new bikes, proverbially speaking. Everything in life is just learning to ride a bike, learning to ride a different kind of bike. And the worst thing we can do is be horribly mean to ourselves and criticize ourselves and judge ourselves. For goodness sakes, my friends, be kind and compassionate to yourself. Being mean to yourself does not guarantee that other people won't be mean to you, regardless of what your brain says. Judging yourself harshly, criticizing yourself, does not mean that others won't judge or criticize you. And then here's a really cool thing, the most beautiful part of all this. That kindness and compassion that you begin to practice and you begin to give to yourself, it's never just for yourself. It overflows to others. So I could argue that taking steps to overcome your perfectionism will not only make your life better, it will make the lives of those around you better. And if enough people do this, oh my, it just might make the world a better place. Can you imagine all of us just living with much more kindness and compassion towards ourselves and that overflowing and having much more kindness and compassion towards others? Oh my goodness. It will impact the world, especially your world, in such a powerful and positive way. Okay, my friends, I just have one special request. Oftentimes at the end of episodes, I say, hey, you check this out, do this, do that. I just have one special request. Please send this episode to someone you know, someone you care about. Maybe you know someone who could really benefit from hearing it, or maybe there's someone who really cares about you, and they can help you as you take steps to overcome perfectionism and live a life of more freedom. So that's my one and only special request. I hope you'll take the time to share this episode with someone. And as I always say, maybe even discuss it together. I promise that you'll get more out of it if you do that. Last but not least, please remember and never forget that there's so much more to you than a number. So don't let the scales dominate your headspace or dictate your emotions for the day. No. Because there's more to you than a number. And losing weight's great, and I love helping people do it, but losing weight is really all about gaining life and living the life you've always wanted. And I know you can do it even if you've tried and failed. Even if this whole episode you're like, oh my gosh, I'm almost in tears because this is so me, Corey. I'm such a perfectionist, and it's been just sabotaging so many areas of my life, including my weight loss. Even if that's you, that's okay. That's okay. I believe in you. You can step out of it. You can move through it. Keep coming back. I'll keep working on you, and we will get you there, my friends. Thank you so much for your time today. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.